Hello, my name is Scar and I have a bag. My bag used to have a normal colored Mew on it, but the paint just kind of slowly fell off little by little, so I replaced the whole thing by painting a Shiny Mew in its place. But even this has started to get worn down from use over time, so I figured it's time to make a new Shiny Mew. I thought I'd do that while introducing my channel here, so this will not just be a boring old "hi, I'm me and I like this and that" kind of video. This is the materials I will be using. Some leftover wire from a different project, Sculpey, a polymer clay that hardens by baking it in a normal kitchen oven, and aluminium foil. So, let's get started. The first thing I'll do is to make an armature or skeleton for the clay to attach to. I'll use the painting on my bag to get started with a nice size for the main body. Not only does making an armature reduce the weight of the thing I'm making, but it also helps it keeps its shape, as the clay hardens in the oven by first softening before hardening. And in that process, if it can't hold up its own weight, it will kind of zag down and lose its shape a little, so this will help a lot. Another great benefit is that it saves clay. It can be a bit expensive, so replacing most of the mass with cheap aluminium and wire is just great. So while I do that, let me tell you a little bit about myself and what this channel will be about. As you have probably already guessed, I like to make things. Not only from clay though, I also do digital and traditional drawing and painting and all kinds of stuff. And I do not only like to make shiny Pokemons, I also have a bunch of interests that stretch over computer gaming, dragons, music, movies, scuba diving, nature, animals, and all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure I will not run out of ideas of things to make anytime soon, and I will probably use a mix of several materials and techniques to make my stuff. But if you do like anything in particular in the future that I make, and you want to see more of it, then let me know in the comments below so I can figure out what to make next. That said, I already have a plan for what my next project will be. I have always loved to collect mounts in this game called World of Warcraft. There is something special about standing around in the current hub of the game with your freshly obtained cool looking or hard to obtain means of transportation that tells everyone else around, "Damn, that person sure loves to waste time on collecting cosmetic pixels." Back when I had collected around 400 mounts in the so-called retail version of World of Warcraft some years ago, I thought to myself, if I ever stop playing this game, I will basically never see any of this effort ever again. And this is something I always had in mind, since that digital cosmetic are just, pixels. So I played with that thought that perhaps I should make digital paintings or drawings of my collection little by little. And I made a few of my favorite ones at the time. But unless I at least printed them physically, that would just result in the same again, more pixels. So with that, I could just take a print screen and call it done. So I kind of put the idea in the back of my mind for years. It was only after I started playing WoW Classic, re-release, so to say, of the game, that the idea popped back in my brain. At this point, I had only found a new material that I wanted to play and create with, called polymer clay. And I'm still pretty new to it, and I've only made a few things so far, but the few things I have made have taught me so much. So my next project will be a World of Warcraft mount. So hit the subscribe button if you are interested and you want a notification when I upload that video. As I was saying, making things out of polymer clay has taught me so much. For someone that have only ever made things out of classical pottery clay, finding polymer clay really opened up a whole new world for me. Not only does it harden in a regular kitchen oven at a fairly low heat, but I can put anything inside. That of course would not melt or burn at that temperature. Making armature and combining materials, a dream. On top of that, regular classical pottery clay would shrink about 15% when baking it, while polymer clay does not seem to shrink at all from what I can tell, making multiple burnings a possibility. Here I am starting to cover the skeleton in polymer clay. I roll out the clay to make it thinner and softer first. One can use something like a pasta machine or a big rolling pin, but for this small project I find that anything on hand will do as long as it does the job. The important thing is to make sure that there is no big amounts of air trapped in the clay, as air will expand when heated in the oven, and then that can lead to cracks or even explode the clay apart from the buildup of force. Throughout my projects, I will set a few limitations for myself. For example, if I am making a mount from World of Warcraft, I will limit myself to only make the ones I have collected in classic or retail WoW. That way I can create memories and physical representations of the grind and or work that went into obtaining said mount. If I make a Pokemon, like in this example, I will stick to making only shinies, the part of the franchise I like the most, finding and collecting the rarest kinds there is. Or Pokemon fusions / Figmon. It would be fun to turn some of the drawings I have made digitally into something physical, so see more of that in the future. Now you can see that Mew's main body and legs are starting to take shape, so I need to start smoothing it out and shaping it with my various tools. One of the best tools to use is simply your fingers. They are great for shaping and smoothing out the clay. wire in place of the leg coming out from the body is thick and it'll hold its weight, while the foil I am adding here around will take some of the mass. I usually connect the foil when I do this to the string with some clay just to keep it in place, both while it's soft and while it's hard. But you can also use clay adhesive or even masking tape to connect things like this. It's time to start with the arms. And like I'm showing here, you don't have to make everything attached all in one go. You can make parts apart, both soft and hardened, and connect them later on. With detailed work and things that you need to turn in all kinds of angles to shape it, this can be a great benefit. And you can even use that technique to make parts that you can separate on purpose in the end product. Mew finally has a finished body, and it is time to put it to the oven to harden it for the first time. And then it's time to sand it. The body may look smooth on camera, but as you can see, here and there are little bends and uneven parts. And I of course do not have to care about this, but for me it would not do justice to Shiny Mew if it was full of dents and bumps. You can get rid of most of the uneven parts with some sandpaper, but it is tedious work to sand something by hand, so it's always a decision to consider if it's worth it. And don't forget to wear a dust mask, of course. You can really see how uneven something is when you start sanding and you get a scratched surface together with the dust. But I will spare you from watching me sand for hours until it's smooth, so I'll skip ahead a bit until until the pass is done with the first roughest grade of sandpaper. Here you can clearly see that I'm not done sanding yet. I'll skip the second pass of sanding as well, but I will mention that I now swap to a sandpaper with a much finer grit for all the details. One eternity later. Finally done with all the sanding, I can now make a hole on top for the string that will hold Mew's head. I used the same method as before to make the shape of the head, before I started marking out where the eyes, snout and ears will go. I end up cutting some of the neck, as it looks a little bit too long. But that is the nice thing about Sculpey. It can be easily cut, even with a knife. So making adjustments is something you can always do along the way. Already hardened. I can now fill in all the uneven nooks and crannies with some soft Sculpey and smooth it out. decided to add a little bit more chunk to the cheeks, as it was looking a little bit slim compared to my bag Mew reference. Now start folding out the string that is going to be the tail and start shaping it into a nice smooth curve. And I will give the tail end some aluminium foil to bulk up the mass. I'll then start covering it in Sculpey and smooth it out. Time to fill the tail with some Sculpey as well. You will notice that rather than one long single wire, I have twinned two of them together. This gives more strength to the tail, as well as giving the clay 2 points to hold on to, as opposed to one, where I often find that one single wire or string will have the clay just easily spin around and lose its grip. added some lines in the eyes for Mew's iris, but I forgot to film it, so I'm just going to show you how I did it here again. I then put it in the oven to harden it, then did a whole lot of sanding again. And you can see some of the armature and aluminium foil through the semi-transparent clay, but it does not matter in this case, as I will be painting it anyway and no one will be able to see it. Final inspection to see if I can find any imperfections to fix, but I settled with it looking just fine. So now, it's time to paint. I'll give it a thin coating of white paint first, as a primer, plus to get the color of the eyes. But in retrospect, I could probably have skipped this step. But oh well, I learn something new every time I make something. Time for the blue color, because that's right, the shiny color of Mew is blue. So the paint that I'm using is acrylic, and it's the only paint I have. It's quite thick, and the strokes of the pencil is not the best for this project. If I had one, I would have probably used an airbrush for this. So feel free to like and subscribe. That way you will help me out, so that maybe, perhaps, one day I will be able to buy an airbrush and test it out on my next project. The way I mix my paint in aluminium foil like this means that I can just wrap it up more or less airtight and take a break until the next day, and I'll still have the exact same color at the ready for the next use without it drying up. It's a neat trick. I've learned it over the years through all of my painting projects. Shade of blue to bring out that baby blue hue that we all love. time to make some eye color. I start off with black and add the dark blue on top. I also paint in the reflection in the eyes in this case. This was something I considered not doing at all, as I was planning to add some epoxy to the eyes for a glossy shine, and typically that gloss would have its own reflection. But I decided to add it in the end, as it will feel more like a Pokemon kind of coloring that we're all used to. I used a combo of a pencil and a ball stylus to add the white paint. For the final touch, I'll add the gloss with my little epoxy racing kit. I know that there are other and better ways to do this than with my 24-hour dry time resin, like for example UV curing resin, but I do not have that, so I use what I have. I build up a little barrier for the resin to be confined only to the eyes, making sure I clear everything I want the resin to cover. I ran out of gloves, so I used a zip bag to protect my hands, and a toothpick to apply the spread of the resin, as I did not want to sacrifice any of my good pencils. And here it is, my finished Shiny Mew. And this was a lot of fun to make, so I think I'll definitely be making more shiny Pokemon in the future. I know that I was not able to keep my camera on my hands the entire time, and that's just because I'm not used to keeping my art still yet. So I'll always drag it closer to my face and out of the camera's view. Sorry for that. I'll do my best to improve that in the future. Other than that, have a good one. See you in the next video.